The engagement party was supposed to be the happiest night of my life. Instead, it became the night I realized I had never actually had a family. The first thing I remember wasn't the music or the decorations. It was my father's voice cutting through the backyard like a knife. "You've always been selfish." Everyone stopped talking. More than 60 people had gathered behind my parents' house. String lights hung from the maple trees. Expensive catering covered 2 long tables, and my fiancé, Ethan, had just slipped the ring back onto my finger after we posed for photos. Then my younger sister, Lily, burst into tears. Not quiet tears, the kind designed to make every head turn. She ran straight toward Ethan and wrapped both arms around him. "I can't do this anymore," she sobbed. "Tell her the truth. Tell everyone you love me." The entire party froze. Ethan carefully stepped backward, gently removing her hands from his jacket. "Lily," he said calmly, "I've told you before. I love your sister. Please stop." She looked at him as if he'd stabbed her. "No," she whispered. "You're lying because she's standing here." My mother hurried over, not to me but to Lily. "Oh, sweetheart." She wrapped an arm around her while glaring at me. "Couldn't you have handled this privately?" she asked. I actually laughed. For a second, I thought she was joking. Then I realized she wasn't. Growing up, I always knew Lily was the favorite. People say parents don't have favorites. Mine absolutely did. If Lily forgot her homework, the teacher was unfair. If I forgot mine, I was irresponsible. If Lily broke a lamp, it was an accident. If I broke a glass, I got grounded. She was younger by 3 years, beautiful in a way magazines loved, and incredibly good at making herself look like the victim. I was the dependable one, the responsible one, the invisible one. When I got accepted into nursing school, my parents barely congratulated me. When Lily got 3rd place in a local beauty pageant, Dad rented a banquet room. I told myself it didn't matter. I built a life anyway. I graduated, found a job at Mercy Regional Hospital, rented my own apartment, made friends who actually enjoyed being around me. And then I met Ethan. We met because I accidentally spilled coffee on him. Not exactly a fairy tale. I'd worked a double shift and hadn't slept in almost 20 hours. Walking into a cafe before driving home, I bumped into someone carrying a laptop bag. Coffee went everywhere. "Oh my God," I gasped. "I'm so sorry." He looked down at his ruined shirt. Then he smiled. "I guess this means you owe me another cup." That was Ethan. He could find humor almost anywhere. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't rich. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply kind. The kind of man who remembered birthdays, who called his grandmother every Sunday, who volunteered at an animal shelter because he couldn't stand seeing abandoned dogs. After 6 months, he met my friends. After a year, he met my family. I should have paid attention to Lily's face the moment she saw him. She smiled, but it wasn't happiness. It was interest, the kind that made my stomach tighten. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining things. She complimented his clothes. She laughed too hard at his jokes. She sat beside him during dinners, even when other chairs were empty. One afternoon, while I was helping Mom prepare lunch, I walked into the living room. Lily was showing Ethan vacation photos. She leaned so close their shoulders touched. He quietly shifted away. She moved closer again. He noticed me standing there. Relief crossed his face. "There you are," he said. "I was looking for you." Lily rolled her eyes. "Relax. We're just talking." I wanted to believe her. Looking back, that was my mistake. Months later, Ethan admitted something. "I didn't want to upset you. We were driving home after dinner with my parents. But your sister keeps messaging me." I frowned. "What kind of messages?" He handed me his phone at a red light. At first they looked innocent. Funny videos. Memes. Questions. Then they changed. "You're too good for her. Don't you think we'd make more sense? Sometimes I think you picked the wrong sister." Then came selfies. Late at night. Sometimes wearing clothes that left very little to the imagination. I stared at the screen. "When did this start?" "A while ago." "Why didn't you tell me?" He sighed. "Because she's your sister. I hoped she'd stop." Instead, she escalated. I confronted Lily the next day. She didn't even deny it. "I was just joking." "You sent him pictures." "They're pictures." "You told him to leave me." She shrugged. "Maybe he should." I couldn't believe how calm she looked. "You know he's engaged to me." "So?" I stared at her. "So?" She crossed her arms. You've always gotten everything. I deserve something good too. I actually laughed. Ethan isn't a prize. He's a person. He chose me. Her smile disappeared. We'll see. For the first time in my life, I felt afraid of my own sister. I showed Mom the messages. She barely looked at them. Lily's immature. Don't make this bigger than it is. Dad needs to know. He doesn't need unnecessary stress. I felt my chest tighten. So you're okay with this? Mom sighed dramatically. Honestly, if Ethan really loved you, he wouldn't even notice Lily. I couldn't process what I'd just heard. You think this is his fault? I think men get tempted. The conversation ended with her asking me to apologize to Lily for embarrassing her. I drove home shaking. Ethan expected me to cancel the wedding. Not because he wanted out. Because he thought my family would never stop. I'll support whatever you decide, he said one evening while we assembled furniture in our apartment. If postponing things gives everyone time to calm down. I interrupted him. No. I'm done letting them control my life. He smiled softly. Then let's get married. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully. I didn't know Lily had already found another way into our lives. 3 weeks before the engagement party, someone created a fake social media account using Ethan's pictures. The account followed dozens of local women. It sent flirtatious messages. Within 48 hours, screenshots started circulating. Anonymous messages landed in my inbox. Is this really your fiancé? I confronted Ethan immediately. He looked completely confused. I've never seen this account. We reported it. The platform removed it. But the damage had already begun. My parents heard about it before I could explain. Dad called. I knew there was something off about that boy. There isn't. He cheated. He didn't. Lily showed us the screenshots. My stomach dropped. Lily! Why does Lily even have them? Dad went quiet. Then he hung up. Something wasn't right. Not even close. The engagement party arrived anyway. I almost canceled it. Ethan convinced me not to. We've done nothing wrong. Let's celebrate. For the first hour, everything actually felt normal. Friends laughed. Music played. People congratulated us. Dad even smiled. I almost believed the nightmare was over. Then Lily disappeared inside the house. 5 minutes later, she returned crying, and everything exploded. She grabbed Ethan, claimed he secretly loved her. My mother comforted her. Guests whispered. Dad's face turned red. Ethan firmly stepped away. I have never led you on. I've asked you repeatedly to stop contacting me. Lily screamed loud enough for everyone to hear. You're only saying that because she's standing here. The backyard fell silent. Dad slowly turned toward Ethan, then toward me. His jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. He pointed directly at my fiancé. If you're humiliating my youngest daughter, his voice was low, you're going to regret coming into this family. I had never heard that tone before, and judging by the look on Ethan's face, neither had he. My father's words hung over the backyard like a storm cloud. No one moved. No one even seemed to breathe. Ethan slowly stepped in front of me, not in a dramatic way, but instinctively, like he was trying to shield me from whatever was coming next. Dennis, he said, keeping his voice steady. I'm not humiliating anyone. Dad took another step forward. Don't tell me what I saw. You didn't see anything, Ethan replied. You heard a false accusation. Lily let out another dramatic sob. So now I'm a liar? My mother tightened her arm around her. Sweetheart, don't waste your breath. Then she looked directly at Ethan. If you had any decency, you'd admit you've been leading her on. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Ethan showed me every message she sent him. I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. A few guests exchanged surprised looks. Mom's expression hardened. You always take strangers over your own family. He's not a stranger, I shot back. He's my fiancé. And she's your sister. The way she said it made it sound like that ended the conversation. As though blood erased every lie. As though family automatically deserved forgiveness. It didn't. Not anymore. One of Ethan's friends finally spoke. I've seen those messages too. Everyone turned toward him. His name was Mark, and he'd known Ethan since college. He told us months ago that Lily wouldn't leave him alone. Another friend nodded. So did I. For the first time that evening, uncertainty flickered across a few faces in the crowd. My aunt frowned. Is that true? Lily immediately covered her face. They're all his friends. Of course they'll lie. The performance was flawless. Shaking shoulders, trembling voice, perfectly timed tears. If I hadn't grown up watching her do this every time she got caught, I might have believed her myself. Dad didn't hesitate. Everybody out. People looked confused. The party's over. Within minutes, guests quietly gathered their coats and gifts. Some avoided eye contact. Others gave me sympathetic smiles. No one knew what to believe. Exactly how Lily wanted it. As we walked toward our car, I heard footsteps behind us. It was my Aunt Rachel. She grabbed my hand. Call me. I looked at her. If you need anything. I almost cried. She had been the only person in my family who ever questioned the stories. When I was 16 and Lily blamed me for breaking Mom's antique mirror, Aunt Rachel had quietly asked one simple question. If she didn't do it, why are there cuts on Lily's hands? No one else had noticed. Or cared. The drive home was silent. Neither of us knew what to say. About halfway there, Ethan finally spoke. I think we should postpone the wedding. I gripped the steering wheel. No. I don't want to. I know. But they're getting worse. They're not just trying to break us up anymore. They're trying to destroy your reputation. I pulled into an empty grocery store parking lot. Then I turned toward him. If we postpone, they win. He stared at me for several seconds, then nodded. Okay, we don't postpone. That should have made me feel better. Instead, I had the strange feeling that we'd just crossed a line we couldn't uncross. The next morning my phone exploded. 37 missed calls. Dozens of texts. Most came from relatives. Some were surprisingly supportive. Others weren't. One message stood out. It came from my cousin Natalie. Please don't answer the family group chat. Naturally. I opened it immediately. I wish I hadn't. Mom had written nearly 3 pages describing how heartbroken Lily was. She claimed Ethan had emotionally manipulated her. Dad called him a predator. Neither of them mentioned the messages Lily had sent. Not one. According to them, she was an innocent young woman who had been taken advantage of. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Then another notification appeared. Lily had changed her profile picture. It was a photo from my engagement party. She had cropped me out. Only she and Ethan remained. Ethan looked at the picture for exactly 2 seconds. Take screenshots. Already did. Good. You think we'll need them? I think we're going to need everything. 2 days later, something happened that neither of us expected. My boss called me into her office. She closed the door. I need to ask you something. My stomach dropped. Okay. She folded her hands. Someone contacted Human Resources. My heart nearly stopped. They claimed your fiancé has a history of harassment. For several seconds I couldn't even speak. What? They also suggested your relationship might create emotional instability that affects patient care. I just stared at her. This wasn't random. Someone had deliberately tried to damage my career. My boss leaned forward. I don't believe anonymous accusations. But HR has to document them. I slowly nodded. I understand. When I walked out of her office, I already knew who was responsible. I just couldn't prove it. That evening Ethan received an email. It was from his company's ethics department. Someone had filed a complaint accusing him of inappropriate relationships with clients. No evidence. No names. Just allegations. He laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was unbelievable. They're trying to get both of us fired. I looked at him. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. We hired a lawyer. Not because we wanted to sue anyone. Because we needed to know how to protect ourselves. The attorney listened quietly while we explained everything. Then she asked one question. Have you kept records? I looked at Ethan. He smiled for the first time that day. Every message. Every email. Every voicemail. The attorney nodded. Good. Keep collecting. Don't respond emotionally. People who lie this much usually make mistakes. I hoped she was right. 3 nights later, someone knocked on our apartment door just after midnight. 3 loud bangs. Not polite knocks. Pounding. Ethan looked through the peephole. Then froze. It's your dad. My stomach twisted. What does he want? I don't know. Another bang rattled the door. Evelyn! Come out! I had never heard him yell my name like that. Ethan whispered. Don't open it. Dad kept shouting. I know he's in there. Tell him to come outside." Neighbors began opening their doors. Someone upstairs asked if everything was okay. Dad ignored them. Then, as suddenly as he'd arrived, he left. The next morning our welcome mat had been slashed with a knife. No note, no explanation, just deep cuts running straight through the word welcome. The message couldn't have been clearer. A week later, Aunt Rachel invited me to lunch. She looked exhausted. "I argue with your parents." "What happened?" "They think you're brainwashed." I laughed bitterly. "By Ethan?" She nodded. "They honestly believe Lily is in love. Not obsessed. In love." I rubbed my forehead. "I don't know how to fix this." Rachel reached into her purse. "I found something." She slid an old envelope across the table. Inside were printed photographs. Family vacation, Christmas dinner, birthday parties. At first they looked ordinary. Then I noticed something. In every single picture where Ethan appeared, Lily was watching him. Not smiling, not talking, watching. Sometimes from across the room. Sometimes reflected in a window. Sometimes barely visible in the background. Rachel quietly said, "I started noticing it months ago." A chill ran through me. There were dozens of photos. Different dates. Different places. The same expression. It wasn't admiration. It was fixation. That night I showed Ethan. He slowly flipped through every picture. I never noticed. Neither did I. He stopped on one photo from Thanksgiving. Lily wasn't looking at the camera. She wasn't looking at dinner. She was staring directly at the engagement ring box hidden inside Ethan's jacket pocket. He looked up at me. "I don't think this started when we got engaged." "You think it was earlier?" "I think." He hesitated. "I think she's been planning something for a long time." Neither of us slept much that night. Because deep down, we both knew the worst part of the story still hadn't happened. And somewhere, while we were trying to protect our future, someone else was planning to destroy it. For the next week, nothing happened. No anonymous emails. No late-night pounding on our door. No dramatic phone calls. The silence should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like the eerie calm before a tornado. Every time my phone buzzed, my stomach tightened. Every unfamiliar car outside our apartment caught my attention. Every knock at work made me glance toward the entrance. "You can't live like this forever," Ethan told me one evening as we ate takeout on the living room floor. "I know, but I also know they're not finished." He didn't argue, because he knew I was right. The following Friday, I was halfway through my shift at Mercy Regional when my phone rang. It was my mother. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. "Hello." Her voice sounded strangely calm. "Your father collapsed." I shot to my feet. "What?" "He's a county general. He wants to see you." Every instinct told me something was off. But he was still my father. No matter how angry I was, I couldn't ignore a call like that. I texted Ethan. "Dad's in the hospital. Heading there now." His reply came almost instantly. "I'm leaving work. Wait for me." I didn't. Looking back, that was another mistake. When I reached the hospital, I rushed to the front desk. "I'm looking for Dennis Carter." The receptionist frowned as she searched the computer. "I'm sorry. We don't have anyone by that name." I blinked. "Are you sure?" She checked again. "Positive." My blood ran cold. I immediately called Mom. Straight to voicemail. Then Dad. Voicemail. Then Lily. No answer. A text from Ethan appeared. "I'm here. Where are you?" I replied. "Dad isn't here." It was a lie. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Stay where you are. I'm coming inside." As Ethan walked through the hospital entrance, his face was pale. "They wanted you out of your apartment." The words hit me like ice water. We ran back to the parking lot. The drive home felt endless. Every red light felt personal. Every slow driver seemed determined to keep us from getting there. When we finally pulled into our apartment complex, 2 police cruisers were parked outside. My heart stopped. Oh no! We jumped out before the car had fully stopped. An officer met us halfway. "Do you live in Unit 4B?" "Yes." "I'm Officer Ramirez. We received a report of a domestic disturbance." "What?" "A caller claimed there was screaming and possible violence inside your apartment." "There wasn't." "I know." He nodded toward our door. When maintenance opened it, nobody was inside. I looked past him. Our front door hung crooked on its hinges. Someone had gone through everything. Drawers had been dumped onto the floor. Closet doors were open. Photo albums were ripped apart. Kitchen cabinets stood empty. At first, I thought we'd been robbed. Then I noticed something. Our television was still there. Our laptops were untouched. Jewelry remained inside the bedroom dresser. Nothing valuable was missing. Someone hadn't been looking for money. They had been looking for something else. Ethan slowly walked toward the office. My computer. It was on the desk, still plugged in, but the filing cabinet beside it had been forced open. Every folder containing printed screenshots of Lily's messages was gone. Every backup drive had disappeared. The only things missing were the records that proved Ethan had rejected her. I whispered. They knew exactly what they wanted. Officer Ramirez listened carefully while we explained everything. He didn't interrupt. When we finished, he asked, "Who knew you kept copies?" I looked at Ethan, then at the officer. No one. Ethan frowned. Actually, I turned toward him. What? I mentioned it once. To who? He looked sick. Your father. It had happened months earlier, during one of Dad's lectures about handling family matters privately. Ethan had calmly replied, "I've saved every message Lily has sent me." Dad hadn't reacted. He'd simply changed the subject. At the time, neither of us thought anything of it. Now, it meant everything. Our lawyer wasn't surprised. They're trying to eliminate evidence. She leaned forward. Tell me something. Did either of you keep cloud backups? Ethan smiled. I work in IT. She smiled back. I was hoping you'd say that. The originals were gone, but encrypted copies still existed online. For the first time in days, we finally had a small advantage. The next morning, Aunt Rachel called. You need to come over. Her voice was shaking. Now. She lived almost 40 minutes away. When we arrived, she locked every door behind us. I found this in your parents' garage. She placed a cardboard box on the dining table. Inside were dozens of printed photographs. Not family pictures. Pictures of Ethan. Walking into work. Leaving the grocery store. Putting gas in his truck. Standing outside our apartment. Some had clearly been taken from inside parked cars. Others were zoomed in from across the street. My hands started trembling. This is stalking. Rachel nodded. It gets worse. She reached deeper into the box. There was a notebook. The first page simply read, Things Ethan likes. Coffee order. Favorite restaurants. His work schedule. His gym days. His clothing sizes. The pages became more disturbing as I turned them. There were notes about places we'd planned to honeymoon. Restaurants we'd mentioned in private conversations. Even a sketch of what Lily wanted her wedding dress to look like. At the top of that page she had written, When we're finally together. I couldn't breathe. Ethan quietly closed the notebook. This isn't a crush. No, it isn't. Rachel lowered her voice. I think your parents know. I stared at her. What? I don't think they understand how serious it is. But they've seen this notebook before. My heart pounded. How do you know? Because your mother asked Lily to keep it somewhere safe. The room went completely silent. Mom knew. Maybe not every detail. But enough. Enough to realize Lily's behavior wasn't normal. Enough to stop pretending it was harmless. Instead, she protected her. Our lawyer immediately contacted the police. The detective assigned to the case listened carefully. He photographed everything, collected the notebook, bagged every picture as evidence. Then he asked a question I wasn't expecting. Has your father ever become physically aggressive? I hesitated. Growing up, Dad wasn't the type to throw punches. His anger was quieter. Doors slammed. Walls dented. Furniture kicked. He'd get inches from your face and make you feel 6 years old again. He has a temper, I admitted. The detective wrote something down. Then I want you both to be careful. 2 evenings later, Ethan and I attended a mandatory mediation session suggested by our attorney before pursuing further legal action. Neither of us expected my parents to show up, but they did. Dad sat stiffly with his arms crossed. Mom stared at the table. Lily looked perfectly composed, as if none of the last few weeks had happened. The mediator began gently. We're here to see whether this family dispute can be resolved peacefully. Dad spoke first. It can. Good. She leaves him. The mediator blinked. I'm sorry. Dad pointed directly at me. My oldest daughter walks away. Lily deserves a chance. For a second, I genuinely wondered if I'd misheard him. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm not choosing between sisters," he said evenly. "I've already chosen my partner." Dad slammed his hand onto the table. "You've ruined this family." "No," Ethan replied. "I refuse to lie." The room fell silent. Then Lily smiled. It wasn't sad. It wasn't angry. It was satisfied, like someone watching the first domino finally fall. And in that moment, I realized something that chilled me more than anything else so far. She hadn't lost control of the situation. She believed she was still winning. Lily's smile stayed with me all the way home. It wasn't the smile of someone who'd been rejected. It was the smile of someone who thought she was only a few moves away from winning. That frightened me more than anything she'd done so far. Because people like Lily didn't stop when they heard no. They stopped only when reality forced them to. I just didn't know what reality was about to cost all of us. 3 days after the mediation, our attorney called. "They've made another mistake." I put her on speaker so Ethan could hear. "What happened?" "Your father's attorney requested copies of evidence they assumed you didn't have." Ethan looked at me. "They still think the originals were destroyed." "Exactly," our attorney replied, "which means they're building their entire defense around that assumption." For the first time in weeks, I smiled. "They have no idea about the cloud backups." "No," she said, "and I'd like to keep it that way." A few days later, Detective Harris asked us to come to the station. He placed several printed phone records on the table. We obtained warrants. My pulse quickened. "For whose phones?" "Your parents." He slid another folder toward us. "And Lily's." The detective tapped one page. "The anonymous complaints sent to your employer." He pointed to a timestamp. "Came from the same internet connection your parents use." Another page. "The fake social media account was created from a device that logged into your parents' Wi-Fi multiple times." Another page. "The false emergency call that got police to your apartment." He looked me in the eyes. "It came from a prepaid phone." I felt my stomach sink. "We couldn't trace the phone itself." He paused. "But we traced where it was purchased." He turned over the receipt. The store's security footage showed Lily buying it 2 days earlier. I expected to feel relieved. Instead, I felt numb. Because proving she'd lied wasn't the same as understanding why my parents had helped her. That answer came from someone I never expected. My grandmother. Dad's mother. She called me late one evening. "I need to tell you something before I lose my nerve." We met the next morning at a small diner she'd loved for years. She looked older than I remembered. Tired. Ashamed. "I failed you." I reached across the table. "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." She took a deep breath. "Your father has spent Lily's entire life trying to make up for something." "What?" "When she was 5. Grandma looked down at her coffee. "Your parents forgot her at a shopping mall. For nearly an hour. A security guard found her crying near the parking lot. Nothing physically happened to her. But afterward, Dad blamed himself. Completely. He promised he'd never let her feel hurt again." Grandma shook her head. "He confused protecting her with never telling her no." Everything suddenly made sense. Not as an excuse, as an explanation. Every tantrum, every lie, every consequence, someone else absorbed for her. My parents hadn't created a monster overnight. They'd built one, brick by brick, over 25 years. The investigation moved quickly after that. Detective Harris recovered deleted messages from Lily's phone. Thousands of them. Most were obsessive journal entries she'd written to herself. Some were fake conversations she'd invented. Others were reminders. "Make Ethan realize she's wrong for him. Mom believes me now. Dad will fix it if things get bad." The worst message wasn't sent to anyone. It was saved in her notes. "If I can't have him, she shouldn't either." When I read those words, I stopped mourning the sister I thought I'd lost. She'd been gone long before this started. A week later, my parents asked to meet. Against our attorney's advice, I agreed, not because I trusted them, because I needed answers. We met in the conference room at our lawyer's office. Dad looked exhausted, like he'd aged 10 years. Mom wouldn't look at me. Neither spoke for almost a minute. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "I know you've been talking to the police." "Yes." He nodded slowly. "You've embarrassed this family." I stared at him. Even then, even after everything, that was his concern. Our family embarrassed itself. His face reddened. "You're choosing strangers over blood?" "No." I'm choosing truth. Silence. Then Ethan quietly placed a folder on the table. Inside were printed screenshots. Every message. Every photo. Every fake account. Every anonymous complaint. Every deleted note recovered by investigators. Dad opened the first page. Then the second. Then the third. His hands began to shake. He reached the page with Lily's private note. If I can't have him, she shouldn't either. He stopped reading. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Mom finally whispered. She told us. Her voice cracked. She told us Ethan encouraged her. Ethan answered calmly. I asked her to stop more than 30 times. He pointed to the messages. You can read every one. Mom looked through them. Message after message. His replies never changed. Please don't contact me. I'm committed to Evelyn. This isn't appropriate. I'm blocking this account too. Tears rolled down her face. Not dramatic tears. Real ones. I didn't know. I looked at her. You never wanted to know. She covered her face. And for the first time in my life, she had no excuse. Dad stood up. I need to talk to Lily. Our attorney stopped him. You should know something first. She handed him another document. The district attorney has approved charges relating to harassment, false reports, identity fraud, and evidence tampering. Dad looked like someone had knocked the air out of him. This, he whispered. This is serious. Our attorney didn't blink. It always was. Lily was arrested 2 days later. The news spread through our extended family almost immediately. Suddenly, relatives who had ignored my calls wanted to apologize. Some admitted they believed my parents. Others confessed they'd been afraid to question Dad. Aunt Rachel hugged me tighter than she ever had. I wish I'd spoken up sooner. So do I. But neither of us could change the past. Only what came next. Months passed. The criminal case ended with a plea agreement. Lily admitted to multiple offenses rather than face trial on all of them. She was ordered to undergo intensive mental health treatment, receive probation under strict conditions, and was barred from contacting either of us. The judge addressed her directly. Obsession is not love. Manipulation is not love. And family loyalty is never a license to harm another person. Those words echoed through the courtroom. No one argued. Not even my father. The hardest part wasn't watching Lily leave. It was watching my parents realize they'd destroy their own family. Dad tried calling several times. I wasn't ready. Mom wrote letters. Some apologized. Some explained. None erased what had happened. Forgiveness, I learned, isn't the same thing as reconciliation. You can let go of hatred without reopening the door. That's what I chose. Nearly a year later, Ethan and I finally had our wedding. Not in my parents' backyard. Not in the church I'd grown up attending. We rented a small lakeside venue 2 hours away. Only 40 guests came. Every single one genuinely wanted us there. Aunt Rachel walked me down the aisle. Halfway to the altar, she squeezed my hand. Your grandfather would have been so proud. I smiled through tears. I know. When I reached Ethan, he whispered, We made it. I looked around. No shouting. No accusations. No performances. Just people smiling because they were happy for us. For the first time, peace didn't feel temporary. It felt earned. About 6 months after the wedding, I received one final envelope. No return address. Inside was a single handwritten note. It was from my father. It wasn't long. I spent so many years protecting one daughter that I stopped protecting the other. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I refused to see. I'm sorry. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. Some things never returned to what they were. But carrying anger forever would have meant letting the past keep deciding my future. I was done giving it that power. Today, when people ask about my family, I don't tell them we were perfect. I tell them the truth. Love without accountability becomes enabling. Loyalty without honesty becomes betrayal. And the people who truly love you will never ask you to sacrifice your dignity to keep the peace. I lost the family I thought I had, but I found something far more valuable. A husband who stood beside me when it would have been easier to walk away. Friends who believed evidence instead of gossip. A future built on trust instead of fear. Sometimes the worst day of your life isn't the end of your story. Sometimes it's the day your real life finally begins.